The first time Ragnar lunged at me, I didn't scream. I couldn't really. Not because I was brave, because I was paralyzed with fear, and, well, paralyzed in general. I was in the garden alone that day, like always. The wind had that sharp, spring chill to it, cutting through my sweater like needles. I remember the way the sunlight hit the patio stones just right, turning everything gold except for him, Ragnar. He sat 3 feet away, silent, still, staring. Then came the growl, low, wet. Not like the warning sound your average dog makes. This one vibrated in my bones, his head tilted, hackles rising, his nostrils flared as if he smelled something awful, something just out of reach. Then he bared his teeth, but not at me. He was looking to my right. My body froze. My hand trembled on the wheelchair armrest. I turned my head, heart thudding against my ribs, but there was nothing there. And that's when he lunged. Straight past me, jaws open, eyes wild. I felt the wind from his movement, heard the snap of teeth, and everything went black. Yeah, that's probably the moment you're wondering about. How I survived. Well, buckle in, because that wasn't even the strangest part. My name is Chloe Langston. I'm 17 years old. I used to be a dancer. I used to climb trees and sleep on the trampoline under the stars with my mom. Then one night, we were in a car. Then I wasn't walking anymore, and Mom was gone. I don't talk about the crash. Not because I don't remember it. I remember everything. The screech, the metal, the scream, the smell of gasoline mixing with perfume. But I don't talk about it. Not with anyone. After that, I got moved in with my stepfather, Mr. Langston. He married my mom 2 years before she died. I never liked him. He was cold in a way that made you feel smaller just standing near him. Every word he said was perfectly measured. Every glance held the same dry calculation as a courtroom judge. We didn't talk much either. His mansion was too big for 2 people. Quiet halls, immaculate furniture, cameras in places he thought I wouldn't notice. One of those houses that looked more like a hotel than a home, the kind of place where footsteps echo. He hired a nurse, Kara, to help with my care. She's the only real human contact I get. She's soft-spoken, always smells like vanilla and antiseptic, and smiles with her eyes. Langston's gift to me, on the anniversary of the accident, he actually called it that, was Ragnar. He claimed it was for my safety. He's highly trained, Langston had said, pressing a firm hand on my shoulder like I should be grateful. Military grade, and fiercely loyal. Ragnar stood behind him, a block of muscle and shadow. His coat was black as coal with tan paws and golden eyes that never blinked. He looked caged, even while free. I didn't want him, Langston insisted. The first day Ragnar arrived, he didn't bark. He didn't sniff. He didn't wag his tail. He just stared at me, not curious, calculating, like he already knew who I was. I wheeled myself, back, my palms sweating against the rubber rims. He didn't follow, just watched. His head tilted slightly, and something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, something deeper. Recognition? Kara was uneasy too. He doesn't act like other dogs, she whispered as she refilled my pill case. Usually they sniff, explore. He's waiting. For what? I asked. She shook her head. That night, I wheeled into the hallway after brushing my teeth. Ragnar stood halfway down the corridor, tail stiff, nose twitching. He was facing the far end, where the guest rooms were. His body vibrated, ears back. Then, from nowhere, he let out a low growl and crept forward on stiff legs. I followed his gaze. Nothing. Just shadows and the soft creak of the old wooden floor. I tried to call him back, but my voice cracked. He didn't budge. Then, like a switch flipped, he stopped. Walked calmly past me and curled up outside my bedroom door. The next morning, I tried to pet him for the first time. Slowly, I reached out from the chair. His ears perked. He looked right, at me, and flinched, but didn't bite. That's when I started writing everything down, in a journal. Every growl, every glance, every tremor in his body when he stared at the corners of my room like he could see something I couldn't. And then I heard Langston. Late that night, through the air vent that connects the hallways, I heard his voice on the phone. She started. "Logging it," he said. A pause. "It's only a matter of time now." Kara started staying longer. She said it was for observation, but I think she was scared. One afternoon while brushing Ragnar, I found something. Just behind his left ear, hidden under dense fur, was a jagged scar, long and faintly raised. My fingers traced it, and he stiffened but didn't move. Then I spotted it, engraved faintly on the inside of his leather collar, B7 Rem. I wrote it down, showed Kara. Her lips went pale. "Where did you find that?" "On Ragnar's collar." She didn't speak for a moment. "Chloe, that's not standard. That's how the military tags subjects." "Rem? That could mean rapid eye movement, dream state programming. I've read about this in reports. Dogs trained with stimulus manipulation. Like brainwashing?" She didn't answer. That night, I had a dream. Not like my usual crash replays. This one was different. I was in a cage. Metal. Cold. My legs worked, but they were weak. I crawled toward a barking sound. Red lights flashed above. I reached out, and a giant black dog lunged toward the bars. Its eyes were golden. Its mouth opened, and it screamed. Woke up sweating. Ragnar was sitting beside my bed, rigid, breathing hard. He was staring at the window, scratching at it, slow, rhythmic, like he was trying to warn something away. Then he froze, his body locked, ears flattened, hackles raised. But he wasn't looking outside anymore. He turned his head slowly and stared over my shoulder, right behind me. Absolutely, I can continue with section 2, Scratches in the Dark. 300 words next. Here is the continuation in the same immersive first-person diary style with suspenseful, emotional, and sensory-heavy writing. No headings included, just seamless storytelling from where we left off. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Not because I didn't want to see what Ragnar was looking at, but because something inside me whispered, "You already know it's not something you can see, you." Ever get that prickly feeling on your neck? That electric tingle like someone's behind you, breathing just close enough that your skin tightens without knowing why? That's what it felt like. Only worse. I reached slowly for the switch on my bedside lamp. My fingers trembled. Click. Light flooded the room. Nothing. Just the dresser. My closet. The stupid flower print rug Kara picked out. I looked back at Ragnar. He was still staring, still rigid. But now, his head tilted again. His eyes flicked between me and the empty space. He took a single step back. That's what broke me. Ragnar, the attack dog, the war-trained monster Langston swore would protect me. He was backing away. I spun my chair toward the doorway. Hands, shaking so hard they slipped from the rims. I almost tipped sideways trying to correct myself. I rolled out into the hallway and slammed the bedroom door behind me. The house was quiet. So quiet. You could hear the electricity humming in the walls. Didn't sleep. Kara showed up the next morning and said I looked like a ghost. She offered me chamomile tea and vitamin gummies. I asked if she'd heard anything strange the night before, any scratching, voices, footsteps. "No," she said carefully, "but maybe you were dreaming?" I showed her the fresh gouges on the inside of my window. Not outside. Inside. Deep. Scratches. 3 perfectly spaced claw marks running in parallel lines across the glass. She didn't say anything for a long time. Just touched the glass with her fingertips. "Chloe," she whispered, "we need to be careful." That night, I didn't sleep again. I stayed in the hallway. Ragnar lay beside me, twitching occasionally like he was dreaming, but he never left. My side. At 3:12 a.m., every light in the house blinked off, just for a second. A power flicker. But it was enough. Ragnar stood instantly, growled low, and I swear, I heard footsteps. Not heavy, not adult, not childlike either. Just wrong, uneven, like something dragging. I froze. I didn't even breathe. And then Ragnar did something he'd never done before. He whimpered. The next morning, Langston returned from his business trip. He didn't say where he'd been. He never did. Just walked in wearing that same immaculate gray suit, poured himself a drink, and barely glanced in my direction. "You look tired," he muttered. I stared at him. "Do you know what B7 REM means?" His glass paused halfway to his lips, just for a second. Then he smiled, but not with his eyes. "Probably a serial number. You shouldn't get caught up in conspiracies, Chloe. They'll rot your brain." I didn't respond. Later that afternoon, I took Ragnar outside. I hated the garden. It looked like something out of a magazine. Too perfect, too manicured. No warmth, just control. Every hedge trimmed to geometric precision. Not a single wildflower. Allowed to live. Ragnar sniffed the grass, then suddenly barked, loud, sharp, and focused, at the old rose trellis by the back wall. I wheeled over slowly. The trellis was covered in thorns and ivy. Dead vines clung to its beams like bones. I reached forward to part some of the leaves and found something carved into the wood underneath. Deep scratches. Not natural ones. Etched with intent. They formed the same letters. B7 REM. My heart sank. This wasn't random. I pulled back fast. Ragnar kept barking until I rolled him away. That night I had another dream. Same cage. Same flashing red lights. But this time, there were voices. Experiment 7. Too reactive. Subject. Showing signs of residual imprint. Terminate if necessary. I woke up screaming. Langston was standing in my doorway. No knock. No warning. Just him. Tall. Pale. Smiling faintly. "Nightmare?" he asked. I didn't answer. He stepped. Closer, the hall light casting long shadows behind him. "You should stop digging, Chloe. You won't like what you find." And then he turned and left. I stayed awake. Watched Ragnar the rest of the night. His breathing was shallow. His paws twitched like he was running from something in his sleep. At 4:04 a.m., the cameras outside clicked. I heard it. That little mechanical, I rolled to my window and looked out. The camera above the garden wall was moving, adjusting, slowly, but there was no wind, no technician, nothing. I turned to look at the monitor Langston had installed in the hallway, 4 black and white squares showing different angles of the property. 3 were normal. The 4th, camera 2, flickered. And then I saw it, a figure. Not clear. More like a smudge in the frame, shifting, writhing, like static that took shape. It stood on 2 legs but bent wrong at the knees. Its head was tilted too far, almost upside down, and it was standing right where Ragnar barked earlier. Then the feed cut, to static. I wheeled back so hard I almost tipped again. Ragnar stood beside me now, alert, staring. He didn't bark. He just watched the screen like he was memorizing it. The next day, Kara arrived earlier than usual. She looked pale, said she couldn't sleep either. She had found something online, some old research documents buried in a veterinary database. She handed me her tablet. It was a declassified report, redacted heavily, about a canine behavioral experiment called Project REM. It involved dogs trained to respond to dream cues, manipulated through sensory deprivation and electric shock until their instincts could be triggered remotely. One name kept showing up in the report. Langston and Weller Foundation. My stomach dropped. "Your stepdad funded it," Kara whispered. I didn't know what to say. My tongue felt like rubber in my mouth. I looked down at Ragnar. His golden eyes looked tired, broken. He'd been made this way. Langston hadn't given me a dog to protect me. He'd given me a dog he knew might snap. A dog with buried trauma and obedience triggers planted in his brain like landmines. He wanted something to happen. Ragnar was the weapon. I was the target, and he was just waiting for the fuse to blow. Later that night, while I was brushing my teeth, I heard a noise, a scratching, but not at the window this time. Under the floorboards. Ragnar heard it too. He stood rigid, staring at the corner of the room where the floor met the wall. He growled, then whined, and backed away again. The scratching continued for 30 seconds, then silence. I stared at the spot. There was no attic above this part of the house, no crawl space below, just foundation, and yet, something was there. Digging. When? I finally gathered the courage to touch the wall. The wallpaper was warm. I didn't sleep. I sat in the hallway again, Ragnar beside me. My journal on my lap. I wrote everything down, and at 5 a.m. when the sun started bleeding pink into the sky, I heard a whisper, soft, breathless, right next to my ear. Wake up. I spun my chair. No one, nothing, except Ragnar, staring again. Not at me, but behind me, again. Langston was in the study again, like always, surrounded by wood-paneled walls, expensive books he never read, and the cold scent of cigar smoke that never faded no matter how often I cracked the windows. He didn't even look up when I entered. Something. You need? He asked casually. I rolled forward slowly, every squeak of my wheelchair sounding louder than it should. What was Project Rehome? He paused, just slightly, then smiled. That same tight, practiced smile. Where'd you hear that? Kara. Found records, you were involved. He finally looked up. That dog, he said, gesturing toward the hallway, was trained to respond to trauma. Deep trauma. You're more traumatized than you realize, Chloe. I clenched my fists. You gave him to me so he'd snap. I gave him to you, Langston said softly. So you'd remember. I didn't understand what he meant. Not yet. That night, Kara brought more files, ripped from some hidden archive she found in a dusty corner of the internet. Reports stamped with redacted lines, and faded logos from a long-dead facility, Hazel Ridge Behavioral Research Center. They weren't just studying dogs, Kara whispered. They were studying connections, psychic ones, between animals and humans. I didn't move. It was all under Project Rehome. They linked human trauma responses to animal instincts, trying to forge permanent bonds, shared senses, emotions. She looked up. They said it failed. But I think Ragnar is proof it worked. I stared out the window. Ragnar was lying in the garden, head down, ears twitching, like he was dreaming with his eyes open. I had a dream, I said quietly. He was chained to a metal wall. Men in white. Coats were showing him videos. Of me. My face. Kara's face paled. He was trained with your image. Everything inside me went still. He was never supposed to hurt you, she said. He was bonded to you, hardwired. Someone else is trying to break that connection. I didn't have to ask who. The next morning, I started hearing things. It began in the garden. Ragnar was outside, ears perked, and I heard a faint sound, so soft it could have been imagined. A distant growl, but not his. It was in my head. Then a high-pitched ring. Sharp, like a whistle no one else could hear. Ragnar snapped his head toward me instantly, like I'd called him. But I hadn't. I'd only felt it. Later, while Kara examined me, half joking, half terrified, she muttered, "The bond might have gone both ways." You're hearing him, Chloe. I didn't know what to do with that. All I knew was Ragnar had started sleeping beside me, head pressed to the wall. Guarding. He wouldn't let anyone else near. That evening, while Langston was out, Ragnar started, barking, not just noise, fury, the kind of bark that comes from somewhere deep. too deep to be just fear. I wheeled fast toward the sound. He was by the kennel, digging furiously, dirt flying in every direction, paws raw and red. "Kara!" I shouted. She came running. "What's he doing?" "I don't know." I turned to Ragnar. "What is it? What do you smell?" He stopped, suddenly. Looked at me. Then pawed once more, precisely. I wheeled closer. My fingers reached the soil, trembling. I started to dig too, inches down, something hard. I scraped the dirt away. Metal. A rusted box, small, locked. Kara used a screwdriver. From the shed to pry it open. Inside, a dog tag, B7 Rem, and beneath it, a necklace, silver, delicate, a tiny flower-shaped locket. My mother's, caked in dirt. I stared at it, shaking, vision swimming. My hands gripped the necklace like it might disappear again. Kara whispered, "Oh my God." I couldn't breathe. My mind reeled. Why was this buried here, under Ragnar's kennel? Why did he know where it was? When I finally looked up, Ragnar was sitting perfectly still, watching me. His tail didn't wag, his eyes didn't blink. But I knew. He remembered. He had protected this, protected her, and somehow, me. Later, Kara sat beside me on the porch, silent. The air felt thick, like it knew we'd unearthed something forbidden. She spoke without looking at me. "Your mom, she worked for Hazelridge." I didn't move. She was the whistleblower. Tried to shut it down. She exposed everything before they could finish what they started. My lips barely moved. "Langston? He wasn't your stepfather. He was her handler, assigned to monitor her, keep her in line." I turned slowly. Kara's eyes glistened. "Chloe," she said, voice shaking. "He wants to finish what she started." Langston's demeanor changed the moment he closed the front door behind Kara. I heard the mechanical clunk of the lock sliding into place, sharper than usual. My breath caught. He came up behind me in silence, gripping the back of my wheelchair. His voice was smooth, too smooth. "Let's go downstairs, Chloe. There's something you need to see." "No," I whispered. But he didn't care. I tried to resist, dig in my hands, grab at the walls. It didn't matter. He pushed me toward the hallway, then the narrow lift that led to the old basement. The air grew colder with each descent, like dropping into a tomb. He flicked on the light. Concrete, metal, dust, old cages. I stared at them, heart pounding. He wheeled me to the center of the room, directly in front of a cracked, glass-paneled console with wires that looked like they hadn't been touched in years, but I could tell. They had. "I used to work in places like this," Langston said, pacing now, his face lost in some memory. "We believed we could shape loyalty like clay, bond man and beast together, with pain, with loss." He turned to me. "You were the perfect variable, the control subject your mother never suspected, until she did. You killed her." My voice was trembling. "No, she killed herself when she got too close." He smiled. "I just helped it along." Ragnar growled softly from the shadows of the stairwell. I hadn't even realized he'd followed us down. Langston pulled something from his coat pocket, a small black remote. My stomach turned. "Your mother programmed the dog's base instincts. I edited them," he said, pressing a button. Ragnar froze. His body stiffened, another click. His head slowly turned toward me. His eyes, flickering, gold and wild, locked onto mine. A low, guttural snarl rumbled from his throat. Langston screamed, "Kill!" The room shrank. My vision tunneled. Ragnar's muscles coiled, legs tightening like a predator about to strike. And then, he leapt. Not at me, at Langston. The scream that came out of Langston's throat was something primal and wrong. Ragnar crashed into him, teeth sinking into fabric, then flesh. The remote clattered to the floor and shattered. They hit the wall, hard. A crack echoed. Langston's head slammed the cement. But it wasn't over. Sparks shot from the console. Fire leapt from the wires, catching the moldy tarps and the edge of the wooden shelves. The old equipment lit like tinder. Smoke filled the room. I coughed violently, spinning my wheels backward. They caught on something. Metal. I fell out of the chair hard. "Ragnar!" I wheezed, dragging myself toward him. He was still standing, guard over Langston, growling lowly, but then he turned to me, whined, and pressed his body close. I gripped the loops on his collar. "Help me," I croaked. He moved beside me, steady and slow, guiding my crawl as the flames spread behind us. The heat bit at my back. Then, voices. "Chloe! Kara!" She burst down the stairs, covering her mouth with her arm. "Oh my God!" She ran to me, hauled me up by the shoulders. "Langston!" I gasped. She looked back into the smoke. "He's gone, Chloe! Come on!" Ragnar nudged me forward until we reached the stairs. Kara practically carried me up, Ragnar never leaving my side. Behind us, the basement howled with fire. Later, they said there was little left of him. Just fragments, bone, ash, burnt metal. They told me I was lucky to be alive. But the strangest thing wasn't just that I survived, it was what happened after. Weeks passed. The house was sealed off. Investigators swarmed, then left. Kara took me in, became my legal guardian. Ragnar was treated for burns, nothing serious. But me? Something changed. It started with a twitch in my left toe, then a spasm in the calf, sensations I hadn't felt in 2 years. Doctors called it spontaneous nerve recovery, a fluke, a miracle. I didn't believe in miracles anymore, but one morning, with Ragnar by my side, I stood up, just for a second, but I stood. Kara cried when she saw. So did I. We moved into a small cottage near the woods, quiet, safe. My legs are still weak, but they're mine again. I can walk with support now, sometimes even without. Ragnar sleeps at the foot of my bed, finally at peace. No more growling, no more pacing, just deep rhythmic breaths. I found another box when we packed, hidden behind a wall panel in Langston's study. My mother's files, blueprints, test notes, Project Rehome, diagrams of psychic bonds, her notes, written in red ink. He's not just a dog, he's a failsafe. For her. For Chloe. She had known. She'd given me the one thing she couldn't protect herself. Ragnar. Sometimes I still dream of the lab, the cold tile floors, the hum of electricity. I hear cages rattling, dogs barking, but they're not nightmares anymore. They're memories, warnings. And sometimes, on the quietest nights, Ragnar sits up at the window and growls, low and steady, eyes fixed on the tree line, like something out there is still watching, something unfinished. But I'm not afraid anymore, because I'm not alone, and this time I walk toward the darkness, not away from it.